So looking at what charity organizations are doing and will be doing on Mandela Day, we're joined now by the founder of the Sylvester Mashilo Foundation, who is promoting fatherhood and aiming to end fatherlessness. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Mashilo. Let's first start with what you're going to be doing tomorrow.
Good evening, Tsapiso. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. We have a campaign called the Fatherhood Run. Actually, it's already taking place. So tomorrow, I guess for me, would be observing Mandela Day by reflecting on the work that we have been doing in support of Tata's legacy. So I ran 67 kilometers on Friday, and it was an E from 9 p.m. And that run completed yesterday in honor of Tata's legacy. And we know how much Tata loves children, so there's no better time to reflect on his legacy, to reflect on the message that he's left us. But I know importantly, he said that we should make every day a Mandela Day. You know, the 18th of July is important, but if we make it every day, even better.
So the Fatherhood Run, is that something that's already been done? And when you say you ran 67 kilometers, in how long?
67 kilometers. Well, it's from Rudaport to Pretoria, if you think about it. I stay in Rudaport, and it's Rudaport to Pretoria. But because it's a partnership with the city of Johannesburg, the route took us from Reimsach Stadium all the way into Zanzibar, Cosmos City, Randburg, into Victory Park, into Braamfontein, and then we made our turn just after symbolically Nelson Mandela Bridge. In Newtown, we made a turn there towards Brixton, Westdean, Fairlands, and then all the way back to the stadium. The run actually started last year when on Nelson Mandela Day, International Mandela Day, I ran 670 kilometers in 27 days, and I guess the numbers tell a story. So that run began on the 18th of July last year, and it ended on the 13th of August. So that's when we launched the campaign. And we said, well, instead of it being how about we have an annual edition that, you know, honors Tata's legacy, but most importantly, galvanizes the nation to say there is a systemic challenge and a problem with regards to fatherhood and fatherlessness in our country. How do we get the nation have these important dialogues? But most importantly, how do we challenge men to do what they haven't done before, which is to be there for their children with heart?
And I want to talk about your viewpoint and what encouraged you, because your campaign runs under the name Bazebonke. Was it from a sense that there are high levels of families where there is particularly the father figure missing in parenthood, while you're talking about intentional parenthood?
Yeah. I think we all have a story to tell. And when I look at my own life story, at one point in time, it could have said to be a tragedy. If you look at our country, we have a very high level of violent crime. And I myself was born from a crime. I was born from rape. And it is an acknowledgement of the hurt that men inflict on our society. But I always say, if you look at these men, they were once boys, they were once innocent. Now the question is, what has gone wrong and when did it go wrong? And I reckon that if we care enough with heart, we see instances where there's an opportunity to make a positive contribution to our children, especially boy children. And perhaps if we don't care enough, we miss the opportunity to positively influence their trajectory in life. And we end up with men who are still stuck in their childhood, in their own head, in their own disappointment, and they turn out to be a disappointment themselves. And it's very easy to say, well, I didn't have a father figure growing up, and therefore I cannot be held accountable or responsible for my own absence because I don't know what it means to be a father. I always have said that when I look at my own life, I didn't know what it meant to really be a good father, to be a man with heart. And I had to learn it myself, but I had to learn it the hard way. But we can teach our boy children to be men with hearts, to be compassionate. So really, our story as a foundation was born out of my own hardships, but an acknowledgement that there's something that we can do. I can use my life story as a positive influence to help other men without blame and judgment.
And
And that's
Sylvester,
exactly what
I
I've set
must
out to
say,
do.
I commend you for that. You raise a very important point also, just in terms of the difficulty of how you came about in terms of your conception, because sometimes absentee fathers aren't necessarily those who are not physically there, because you can have fathers who are there, but as you talk about wrought a negative influence on the offspring, and you say a great deal part of it is about unlearning and learning. What we talk about as toxic masculinity. Talk to me about your community, what you see, and I'm talking about the simple things. You talk about rape and how the truth about it is rape is about exerting power over women, you know?
Absolutely. But I think the tragedy about it is we often don't talk about the outcomes of rape, which is that sometimes it produces a child who's innocent. But what happens to that child who perhaps is sometimes treated, as though they don't exist and as though they are this taboo, because their conception does not necessarily and should not, in fact, in itself be a signal of their worth. What we see in terms of our work is that the majority of children are raised by single mothers. And the stats actually back that up. There was a research that was done by Stats SA in 2017. It's called the Household Survey. And what it found is that by the age of 18, over 61% of South African children do not have an active biological father. Over 61%. Now, juxtapose that to Black South Africans, that number is over 70%. Now, that in itself is a tragedy. And I guess if you talk to people, and I mean, we mentor boys in our programs, and you can see evidently what the absence of a positive role model has done to that boy. There's a lot of anger. There's sometimes questions about whether I'm good enough. Why didn't my dad stay around? And to be affirmed by another man. And you know what's telling, Sapiso, is that the mothers say to us, I do the best that I can, but I don't know whether I'm teaching him to be the kind of man that he ought to be, because I'm not a man. And that is important to note, that we are not saying that single mothers who, and it's not by choice, are not doing an exceptional job. They are.
Just don't have the wherewithal to play
exceptionally well.
Yeah, thank you. Sylvester, I'm so sorry that we have run out of time.
Absolutely.
But point taken, as you say, single mothers would love to, but they just don't have the wherewithal to play both roles. We appreciate you and the work that you do. They run a program for mentoring young boys between the ages of 8 to 16. Sylvester Mashilo, thank you very much, and wish there could be more people like you and programs